The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar offered from Deakin University titled Get the Edge in the Digital Age, looking at IT as an industry, looking at the outlook for demand and full demand for IT professionals and the kinds of skills that's currently in demand. My name is Robin Doss, and I'm from the School of Information Technology at Deakin University, and I'm the Associate Head of School Development and International. The aim of this webinar essentially is to identify some industry trends and to link those industry trends to the courses that we offer here at Deakin that enable our graduates to take advantage of the opportunities that exist within the IT industry at the moment. This webinar is recorded and along with the audio recording, the slides and additional information will be emailed to you in the next 24 hours. Feel free to share that with friends or colleagues who might also be interested in this topic. Also, I'd just like to make mention that the closing date for trimester 2 applications is the 7th of July. So if you would like to apply for a course here at Deakin in IT or in any other area, that's a date to keep in mind. So let's get started. Getting started. Okay, so we refer to what's currently known as the digital age, and I'd just like to clarify what we actually mean by that term before we start off. One of the key enablers for the economy at the moment is IT, commonly referred to as ICT, or Information Communication Technology. And it's a key driver in advanced economies, especially for both innovation and productivity. And it's estimated that it contributes to 33 to 65% of multi-factor productivity growth for service-based industries such as health, for instance, and even higher for manufacturing industries, which is about 45 to 75%. So it makes a significant impact in terms of how productive a business or an organization can be. In addition to that, it's also well documented through OECD studies that IT, especially penetration of broadband networks, such as what's been happening in Australia at the moment through the national broadband network rollout, that it plays a significant role in increasing the GDP of a country. So for instance, for every 10% increase in broadband penetration into the community, it's estimated that GDP increases by 1%. And on top of that, if you can double the broadband speed, you get an additional increase of about 0.3 percentage points as well. So ICT in general makes a significant contribution to the economy of any country, and Australia is no exception. However, what we're observing in Australia at the moment is there's a significant shortage of skilled IT professionals, and this affects every sector of the economy. And the reason why it affects every sector of the economy is because ICT workers and IT professionals are employed in all of the 19 industry divisions that are identified by the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So irrespective of any industry sector that you take, so whether it's manufacturing or mining or aviation, transport, health, you see that it's built upon IT systems, and IT professionals are required to ensure that those industries are successful and productive as well. Now, when we look at IT professionals and the IT industry as a whole, we can essentially observe and categorize three core occupational clusters. The first one, the largest one, is what's referred to as ICT professionals. So these are people who are highly specialized, especially in areas such as software development and application programming, system analysis and design, or in other areas such as web development. And these are the people who constitute a majority of the workforce. And most people in this category would hold higher degree, higher education qualifications, so university bachelor's or master's qualifications. At the other end of the spectrum, we have a smaller section of the profession, which are referred to as ICT support technicians. So these are people who provide support for the deployment and maintenance of computer infrastructure, maybe web technology as well, basically assisting the resolution of things like technical problems. So for instance, if we take the national broadband network rollout out, they would be the people who are responsible for the cabling that's taking place in terms of rolling out of the optical fiber network. These people usually have lower level qualifications, so usually trade level certificates or TAFE certification, for instance. And then you have the managerial positions, which are occupied by the ICT managers, who are responsible for things like planning, organizing, directing, and essentially things like project management activities related to the deployment of computer and telecommunication systems within organizations. And ICT managers usually have gone through the process of being an ICT professional, so they'll hold technical qualifications, but in addition to that, they will also hold things like project management qualifications as well, certifications in that area as well, which gives them that ability to have a management oversight. What's been happening with these three occupational clusters? Over the last 20 years or so, there's been a steady increase in terms of the numbers of people employed across all these three categories, whether it's ICT support technicians or ICT managers or ICT professionals. So at the moment we have about 300,000 people employed in the ICT professional and manager category. So that's the blue curve here. And you also have the ICT support technicians, who are about 50,000 who are employed. So in total we have about 350 to 380,000 people who are employed in ICT as a profession. Now that's a very small proportion of the Australian workforce. It only makes up about 3 to 4% of the Australian workforce, but it's very critical to the success and the enabling of productive operation of all other industry sectors, as I mentioned earlier. Importantly, in the last 3 years, especially from 2010 onwards, there's been a very steep increase in the number of people employed. And with initiatives such as the National Broadband Network, we expect that this will continue to grow, and the projected forecasts to 2015-2016 all points to significant growth in IT and ICT as a profession. As I mentioned earlier, irrespective of which industry sector you take, you'll find IT professionals employed within these sectors. The largest industry sector that employs IT professionals is this category, which we refer to as professional, scientific and technical services. The second largest one is in information media and telecommunications, and the third one is in financial and insurance services. So those are the top three industry sectors that an IT professional can seek employment in. But in addition to that, irrespective of whether you're interested in education or transport or healthcare or in utilities such as electricity and gas utility service providers, or even agriculture and forestry, there's IT professionals that are employed in all of those areas. Because of this fact that IT professionals are employed in every industry sector, the forecast growth is significant. If we just take one industry sector, for instance, if we take the professional, scientific and technical services sector, just that sector is expected to increase by about 2.4% per annum for the next 5 years. So that's about 108,000 new jobs that are going to be created just in that area alone. And the reason, the enabler for that growth is ICT is identified as one of the enablers for that growth. And so there are opportunities for ICT professionals in those areas. So irrespective of which industry sector is booming, if we can use that word, it will directly impact upon the demand for IT professionals. And that's one of the benefits of being in IT and ICT as a profession. Looking forward, in the 5 years between 2010 and 2015, which area, what are the projected growths? So for instance, across the 7 main ICT professional clusters. Software and application programmers are expected to increase by 15,000 between 2010 and 2015. Computer network professionals by about 5,500, and all areas. So whether it's database, IT security, system analysts, web developers, everybody's expected to, new jobs are expected to be created in all of those areas. Now, how does IT as a profession compare with all other occupations over that same period? The projected growth rate for ICT as a profession is about 2.5% per annum. The annual growth rate for the Australian economy is 1.8% per annum. So we're growing at a rate that's significantly higher than the annual growth rate. Just quickly looking at some significant areas of growth and some significant professions within IT itself and what we expect to be happening looking forward to 2016-2017, so over the next 3 to 5 years. For instance, software and application programmers are expected to grow very strongly. Most of those jobs are expected to be full-time jobs. The vacancy level for software and application programmers is usually low, but there's about 7.7% of people employed in this industry that leave annually. And so this creates potential job openings and creates a steady demand for people with these skills. Also, the mix of industries in which software and application programmers are employed is very favorable for employment growth because they're employed across a wide area of industries such as professional and scientific services, financial services, public administration, manufacturing, and so on. The next area is network professionals. Again, this is an area that's expected to grow very strongly as well. Most of the jobs in this area as well is full-time jobs, so almost 95% of jobs in this area is full-time. Again, since network professionals, as we know, computer networks support almost every industry sector these days, the growth prospects for computer network professionals is significantly high. The internet vacancy level for computer network professionals is high, so that's an area of high demand at the moment and also looking forward. The other area is system administration and in IT security. Now, this is an area that's expected to grow very strongly. The internet vacancy level in terms of job vacancies advertised over the internet in this area is moderate, but there's about 7.2% of people employed in this industry sector that leave annually, so that creates potential job openings as well. And again, not dissimilar to the other areas, the mix of industries that employ database and system administrators and ICT security is quite broad. So for instance, ranging from professional services to financial services to education and training. And as a result of that, employment growth prospects is very favorable. Business and system analysts, again, this is an area that's expected to grow very strongly. Again, large percentage of full-time jobs. A lot of these jobs are through consultancy type roles. And tend to be quite high-paying roles as well. And one of the requirements that employers look for, especially in this industry sector within IT, is someone who has a good understanding of not just technology when it comes to IT, but can also bring with them some understanding of business. So if someone's looking for a career change from, say, banking, for instance, to IT, this is a good job role to target because you can leverage off your understanding of, say, banking and use IT skills to provide consultancy type services back to the banking industry, for instance. So again, this is a very high profile job, if you like, that's expected to grow very strongly. We also have multimedia and web developers who are expected to grow very strongly. Especially with the penetration of the national broadband network, it's expected that as a result of that, the demand for digital content will significantly increase, and that will have an impact upon the demand for multimedia specialists and web developers. So this is an area that's growing as well. The internet vacancy level for this area usually is quite low, but there is still 7.7% of people employed in this group who continually leave every year, and that creates potential job openings as well. Now, having made the point that there's significant demand for IT professionals across different industry sectors, and irrespective of what your specialism or interest in IT might be, there is opportunities that exist. What does someone who gets employment within IT look like from an educational point of view? What are the qualifications that they actually hold? It shows us, as looking at these statistics, that IT tends to be a highly educated industry sector. So for instance, the percentage of people holding a bachelor's 3 or 4 year qualification is 45.9% within ICT, whereas the national average across all other occupations is only about 17%. Similarly, with higher qualifications such as a graduate diploma or postgraduate qualifications, ICT as a discipline is almost 3 times higher than the national average when it comes to number of persons holding postgraduate master's level qualifications. And it's expected that this demand from the industry for people with not just skills that are informally gained, but people with skills that are formally gained through university level qualifications. It's expected that and it's forecast that demand will continually increase. So we expect to see a higher proportion of people with, for instance, graduate diploma or graduate certificate qualifications and postgraduate qualifications going forward in the next 5 years. So it's becoming a workforce that's becoming more and more deeply skilled in terms of formal qualifications, and obviously industry certifications are always important and will continue to be so as well. So in terms of courses and qualifications and degrees that Deakin offers in this sector, we have a suite of both undergraduate and postgraduate master's level courses that are offered to prepare our graduates to take advantage of the demand that exists within the industry at the moment. So I'll quickly run through the courses that we have at both the undergraduate and postgraduate levels as well, and then hopefully we have some time for a few questions. At the undergraduate level, we offer a broad degree referred to as the Bachelor of Information Technology that aims to provide students a broad and thorough grounding in information technology and allows them to specialize in certain areas such as networking, IT security, games development, interactive media, and software development. So it's a very broad course, allows the student to tailor the course to meet their individual interests. You can specialize in more than one area. Apart from that, we have a set of very specialized courses. The first one is the BIT Computer Science and Software Development, which is aimed at giving students in-depth understanding of the technology on which systems are built, as well as the ability to develop complex software systems and applications. So it's a very highly focused and highly specialized degree, focused especially on application and software development. Then we also have the BIT Games Design and Development, which again is really a software development course, but it looks at using software development skills within the context of developing computer games using advanced techniques for computer games design and games development as well. And it's important to make the point that games design and development these days is sought after not just within, for instance, the video games industry or the entertainment industry. It's sought after in almost every industry sector. Mining is a good example because people who graduate with this degree have the skills to simulate different kinds of environments, and so it's a skill that's growing in demand, especially in the mining industry, where companies require people to simulate activities, simulate events that might occur, and so on. Then we have the IT security course, which aims at providing students with sound knowledge and understanding of general issues, concepts, and practices in IT security. It has a very strong digital forensics component to it, so it addresses that investigative side of IT security as well. In addition to those 4 courses, we also have 2 higher level courses aimed at high achieving students at the undergraduate level, and this is the Bachelor of Information Technology Honors and Bachelor of Information Technology Professional Practice. The honors course is basically aimed at preparing students to progress to a PhD, and the BIT Professional Practice course incorporates 3 to 6 months or sometimes up to a year of industry-based learning as well. So as part of the degree, you can get real-life industry experience, and as a result of that, you gain an edge when you are applying for jobs. A new course that was introduced in 2013 is the Bachelor of Information Technology Mobile and Apps Development. As we know, the area of apps design and development is one of the largest growth areas in ICT. And it's a multi-billion-dollar economy by itself. And the aim of this course is basically to prepare graduates to take advantage of what's happening in that sector of ICT. So the focus really here is on design and development of apps on various mobile platforms. And obviously it gives students grounding in software development skills, but within the context of apps design in this course. A new course that will be designed and that will be offered starting next year is a combined degree, a Bachelor of Criminology and a double degree, a Bachelor of Criminology combined with a Bachelor of Information Technology IT Security. So this double degree basically is aimed at giving students both practical and professional training that will enable them to study the critical analysis of criminal activity, both from a social sense, but with a strong focus and a relation to the investigation and prosecution of digital and computer-based crimes and computer-based frauds. As we know, the instances of those activities, computer-based crime and frauds, is increasing. So there's a significant demand in industry for people with both technical skills who can investigate these criminal activities in a technical sense, but at the same time be able to present that evidence that has been collected in a legal and policing context as well. And that's the kind of graduates that this degree is aimed at producing. At the postgraduate level, I'll quickly make reference to this. We have 3 courses, the Master of Networking and Security, which is an interdisciplinary course that covers various areas such as network computing, information systems, cryptography, ubiquitous computing, digital forensics, and law. And then we have a Master of Information Technology course as well, which is a broad course in IT, combining various disciplines in IT, ranging from software development to IT services. Both the Master of Networking and Security and the Master of Information Technology are 1.5-year courses, and the Master of Information Technology is a course that's designed to suit both people who come from IT and non-IT backgrounds. So you're not required to have an undergraduate degree in IT to do a Master of Information Technology. So the course structure is designed in such a way that you can tailor it depending upon what your background might be. So if someone's looking for a career change, that's an excellent course to consider. The Master of Information Technology is a professional. It's an extension of the Master of Information Technology, and it includes an additional semester of study that can either include 3 to 6 months of industry-based learning or 3 to 6 months of research-based training, which can then serve as a pathway to a PhD program. All our courses at the undergraduate and postgraduate level are designed to combine both theoretical knowledge as well as hands-on practical experience. They're designed with continual consultation with industry and incorporate industry certification curriculums such as Cisco and CISSP. And one of the main features of our courses are that they are flexible. They can be undertaken in both off-campus and on-campus mode. And we have courses that are available for students who come from both undergraduate, both IT and non-IT background, especially at the master's level. So just to quickly conclude, IT and ICT as a profession has significant growth prospects going forward since IT underpins almost every industry sector. Main areas of growth forecast are in the areas of computer network professionals and IT security, as well as software and application programmers. We expect that the demand for IT security professionals will increase quite significantly going forward as ICT becomes more ubiquitous, and the higher penetration of broadband connectivity with the rollout of the NBN will increase demand for digital content and hence demand for multimedia and web developers. And I guess the bottom line is that ICT as a workforce is becoming more and more highly qualified, and so the expectation from employers is that people have hands-on skills, but at the same time they have formal qualifications as well. And it really is a profession that requires you to be constantly learning because of the way in which the technology changes so significantly and quickly. And as a result of that, skills deepening and lifelong learning is something that's, as a skill, that's important for us, for IT professionals to gain as well. So I'll stop there and we'll be happy to take a few questions. So if anybody has any question, a good way to do it would be to click the icon which raises your hand, and then or type it in the chat window. So if there are no questions, I just want to thank you for participating in this webinar. Hopefully it gave you an understanding of the ICT industry and what's in demand. We'll be emailing out the presentation to you, and it'll have my contact details in that recording that's emailed out to you. So feel free to contact me if you have any questions that you'd like to ask me later. We have a couple of questions here. I'll try to quickly answer them. The first question says, what are the best chances of getting jobs? And that's from Mayank. I guess one of the important things about the IT industry at the moment is that it's becoming an enabler for businesses, and so what employers are looking for really is people who have good technical skills, but at the same time also have good soft skills. And by soft skills I mean people who have good communication skills, both good oral and written skills, good presentation skills, for instance, as well as ability to be able to work well in a group, have some leadership potential, and things like that. So yeah, so it's no longer just sufficient that you have good technical skills. It's important to also get those additional soft skills as well. And in addition to formal qualifications, I'll also suggest to increase opportunities to also look at industry-based certifications as well. So they're a good value add and complement formal qualifications. The next question was more of a comment, I think. That most of the jobs are targeted for full-time employment. That is from Silika. Yes, a large proportion of the IT industry is employed in full-time positions, but there's always the opportunity to undertake consultancy type and contract work as well. And especially as we're moving towards things like the cloud, and outsourcing in IT is not something that's new. Contract-based positions are quite widely available as well. So if you have the right set of skills, you should be able to exploit those contract-based opportunities that might come along if full-time employment is not something that you might want to consider. Another question is about PhD degrees. The questions from Bhageshri says, could you please tell me what is the future after a PhD in IT? I guess after a PhD in any field, really, a student has two options, and in IT is no exception. One option is to consider an academic career. A PhD has become a minimum requirement these days if you want to apply for an academic position. The other opportunity is to apply for research positions in industry-based research labs. So every large IT company has a research and development division. For instance, IBM just started their Australian research lab here based in Carlton in Melbourne, and they're hiring about 200 PhDs. So that's a significant opportunity for people who hold PhDs, and research labs and development opportunities exist for people with PhDs who might not want an academic career. There's another question from Faisal, which is on clouds, which says, how do you see the increasing use of the cloud by organizations and outsourcing affecting the employability of ICT workers? Which sub-areas of ICT do you expect will be most affected? Obviously, clouds is here, and it's probably here to stay for a long time. It has significant benefits for organizations, especially when it comes to infrastructure investments that organizations need to make. And I guess as a lead off that, administration type roles, which traditionally existed within organizations for management of these infrastructures, will probably diminish in number. Because they wouldn't be required to be managed within each organization, because the infrastructure as a service, and which the cloud provides, is the way of the future. Having said that, management of the cloud infrastructure is becoming more and more important, especially from a security and data privacy point of view. So people with good administration skills complemented with good security skills will still be able to, will still be in demand. Even though that outsourcing might occur. But that's one of the main areas where I think and expect that a demand will diminish slightly. There's another question from Mayank about industry experience built into our course. Deakin, for every Deakin student, irrespective of whether they're doing an undergraduate course in IT or a postgraduate course in IT, can incorporate industry-based learning opportunities, which can range from 100 hours of internship done over 3 weeks within an organization, or could be 3 months or 6 months or 12 months of paid industry-based learning. And that's an excellent opportunity for students who obviously at the undergraduate level in most cases do not have workplace experience, to gain some workplace experience. And in most cases we find when students do industry-based learning, it's an easy pathway into the organization in terms of getting full-time employment on their graduation. So any course at Deakin would give students the opportunity to gain some experience in the industry, which can then obviously be a differentiator when they're applying for jobs. And lastly, again, there's a question from Salika in terms of Deakin allowing students to sit in on lectures to target specific areas, not just the whole course. Deakin does allow students to undertake single units which interest them, so you don't have to be enrolled in an entire course in order to be able to study a couple of subjects that you might have interest in. And you can so it's not always a requirement that you enroll in a course in order to undertake a subject of interest. I should probably also mention that Deakin's moving to the massive online open courseware medium as well, and so we'll see more and more Deakin courses that are offered through the online environment where students can undertake those courses for free. But it's just in the initial stages, so we don't really have any IT courses at the moment. Yes, and also once you undertake single units, you can then use those units to gain credit towards a qualification as well, if that's something of interest to you. We'll be sending more information out through the recording that's sent out. But if you have any other questions that you might like to ask later, my contact details will be on those recordings, and feel free to email me. So I believe that's all the questions that we have. Thanks again for your participation, yes, we'll be in touch, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you.